Hi, Kevin Henry with Dental Economics and Dental Assisting Digest. Here today doing a Skype interview with Dr. Rhonda Savage. And we're going to talk a little bit today about verbal skills that are used in the dental practice. And Dr. Savage, I know that you've heard some things whenever you've been doing lecturing or doing consulting, the right things and wrong things that dental teams and dentists are saying in the praxis. What are some examples that you can give to our viewers of the good and bad things you're hearing?
Kevin, it's truly about what we say, how we say it, and how people hear it that makes the difference. And it's those verbal skills, I think, that really drive the success of a practice. I just did a verbal skill workshop as a webinar, and we're doing this in a two-part series. So if you have the opportunity, go to our website. It should be up shortly. I just did this last Wednesday. And what we're looking at is really the team need to clearly understand how to say things, and it is how we say things that matter. So one example is we're seeing doctors struggle right now with getting patients to accept their treatment. Well, first, doctors, make certain that if there is a need for treatment, that you're expressing the need for urgency at the chair. And I see doctors oftentimes shoot themselves in the foot by being a nice guy or a nice gal, and we are nice people, but this is important stuff that the patient gets their treatment done. So one of the things I hear doctors say quite often is, and this was in the South, it was really cute. The doctor did a beautiful job explaining why the patient needed a buildup and a crown, and then he turned around and he said, "Now when you take a notion to getting this done, just let us know." No, say it's really important that you get this done as soon as possible. I'd like you to be very careful with your tooth until you get this taken care of. So watch out for hard and crunchy things or temperatures, hot and cold things that could set the nerve off inside this tooth. And I'd like to see you on my schedule in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Now make sure you've got room on your schedule in the next 2 to 3 weeks. But doctors, express a concern for urgency at the chair. Don't say, "Now give us a call when you're ready to do this." Gotcha. And then the dental assistant and the hygienist also need to be clearly defining the value of the dentistry. A lot of broken appointments are started in the back because we're not clear about value. In the last 30 seconds, instead of doing the whole social chit-chat thing, make sure you're expressing the reason the patient needs to return for that next visit, why they need to return, and make certain if you're talking about a crown or a bridge or anything like that at the chair, that you write the narrative down at the time of the appointment, because that gives the front desk information if the patient doesn't want to schedule, to be able to try and let them know the urgency of that appointment at the time when they're trying to schedule them. So even on the telephone, if the patient tries to call and cancel, don't be too nice. Be nice, but have a tone of friendly disappointment in your voice. One front office lady I know, when she has a patient who tries to call and cancel, she'll immediately say, "Oh, I'm sorry, we're not taking any cancellations today." And so it's important. It's how we say things that matters a lot. And many times people will call with a lame excuse as far as rescheduling. Instead of being very nice, first, don't give them an appointment right away. Set them out 3 or 4 weeks. But then, in addition to that, say, "Gosh, this appointment is really important. That tooth has a crack through it and it has a deep cavity. Is there anything I can do to help you keep this appointment?" And then go silent. Go silent and don't say a word. This is the hard part. Don't say a word. Make the patient talk first. And they'll realize it's not going to be an easy thing to reschedule, but yet you've been nice and you've been professional. So Kevin, what are you hearing out there as far as people's expressing, the articles that you're publishing and people expressing concerns in the industry?
Well, and honestly, you hit on it a minute ago. A lot of things that I'm hearing is making sure that every member of the team is on the same page when it comes to, making sure about appointments, making sure that, yes, this really is a necessary procedure that needs to be done. Because a lot of times the dentist may walk out and the assistant may be on a different page, and the patient a lot of times, as you all know, may talk to the assistant and listen to what the assistant says just as much or more than the dentist says. So what do you suggest to make sure that everybody's on the same page? Is it sitting down at lunch and learn? So scripting, what would you suggest?
Well, first I suggest that they get on our cruise going to Cozumel out of Fort Lauderdale, March 2012, the 22nd to the 26th, because you will hear a lot of verbal skills on that cruise. Or you could take a team retreat and be like myself right here in Miami Beautiful place. Get away from your office and have us come as your retreat facilitator. But within the office, seriously, what can you do within your office? If you haven't done this, first off, if you don't have intraoral cameras, you're really missing the boat. An intraoral camera says, I can trust, says, I can trust you. Excuse me. Now, an intraoral camera is the way that the patient can look over the doctor's shoulder and see exactly what you're seeing. But I want your staff to be able to talk from those intraoral photos. So at your team meeting, doctors lay out a whole bunch of intraoral photos and show the staff what you would say from a particular picture. Have 2 or 3 sessions, half-hour sessions like this. Doctors, what would you say about this tooth? And then reverse the sessions, and doctors have your staff tell you what they would say about that picture regarding that tooth. I want your staff to learn to talk for you. So lunch and learns is one thing where you have intraoral photos. A second would be to consider purchasing our verbal cue cards. Now, you can make your own verbal cue cards or you can buy ours. What I want you to do is have 3 sets of verbal cue cards. The first one is for every common procedure in your practice. Write down the advantages and the disadvantages if the patient doesn't have the treatment done. That's one set. A second set would be the pre- and post-treatment explanations for each procedure. Doctor, what do you want your team members to say about that particular procedure? And then a third set would be all of the commonly asked patient questions. So make a list. In 1 week, I want you to write at every phone and every workstation, I want you to have a pad of paper and write down every single question your patients ask. This will teach you 2 things. Do this for 1 week. At the end of 1 week, one brave person summarizes all those questions that can read your handwriting. And then what I want the doctor to do is take those questions home over the weekend and write a 2 or 3 sentence answer for those questions. Doctors, what do you want your team to say? Now, not a book. I want it succinct, short, and in layperson's words. The second thing that this will teach you besides how to answer the question is, if you get a question multiple times, you're lacking communication up front. So we need to look at what are the commonly asked questions. So Kevin, those are 3 ways that we can work with our team: verbal cue cards, intraoral cameras, and making sure you go on a team retreat or come on our cruise.
Sounds great.
Great.
And where should they get more information on any of those 3 things that you just mentioned? How can they get a hold of you?
Oh, thank you, Kevin. As well as the verbal skill workshop, the tools are amazing. I did this about 3 years ago at the Pacific Northwest Dental Conference, and I'll be presenting a verbal skill workshop as well as the Savage Front Desk workshop at the Yankee meeting coming up in Boston in January. But they can go to my website, which is www.milesglobal.net, and you can find our products under our products, our workshops, as well as our webinars, as well as our verbal cue cards.
Sounds great. Dr. Savage, thanks for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks for having me.